Well, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday.
Is it really?
Yes. My last show of the week.
Yeah, we're not going to see you for a little bit, and we're going to miss you. And but hey,
Yeah. Well, I'll miss throwing the snowballs out there and listening to the people and listening to their complaints that go unanswered by the administration and the city, and watch them foster their never-ending program of taking care of any group that could get them some votes and anybody that's politically connected.
let's not talk about Group 4 yet, okay?
I mean, just in general, there's another group now. They're attempting to do something on the school side that I'm going to talk about.
Oh, you're talking about the nurses.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, this mayor does not like labor. He does not like organized labor until it gets him a vote.
He wants to get rid of everybody that he can off the budget that actually works for a living. These people will get into it, but when I come back...
Well, then he'd be able, then in the next budget, he'll be able to come back and give Falsfiore another raise.
But I can tell you what, this is going to come back and bite him in the rear end, because I'll tell you what, these people are, number one, they're very low, they're low paid. They work with severely handicapped children. They have a relationship with the teachers who do it, the parents. They've been in the system for years. They're in the retirement system, in the correct group, I may add. And now, because the federal funding is dried up, he's saying, well, he's threatening them with, unless they succumb to political pressure, he's just going to get rid of them and bring in a private contractor.
There you go.
Who has no relationship with these children, no relationship with their parents. And I'll tell you what, I will lead the charge to bring in every parent with a child, and we know how they treat handicapped. CJ, you've been at the forefront of making this an issue of how the Fall School system treats its handicapped children. And the fact is that, look, the chairman ex officio, the mayor, is going to get a lot of heat on this one. I'll tell you, because I'm going to do everything I can to make the public realize that this guy doesn't give two craps about people who actually work for their pay. He always gets rid of the lowest paid people, and as you said, to give his friends stipends.
Yep. Well, before we go any further into this stuff, I do have to say congratulations, Patriots. Congratulations, Pats Nation, and all you Pats fans who said at halftime, we lost. You're truly true fans, I can tell right now.
And don't forget to give a shout out to Atlanta, the biggest choke I've ever seen in my life.
I know.
The #1 offense in the NFL couldn't get a field goal in the second half, turning the ball over. They never rushed. They had a 4-man rush the entire game. That second half was a disgrace.
Yep.
And it showed at the end of the game when they interviewed their defense. Their defensive coordinator said, well, what did they do that they couldn't stop? He said, oh, well, they're really good, which means I have no idea. I made absolutely no adjustments. So let's give a shout out to Atlanta, and especially its defensive coach.
Yeah. It's very interesting because, in the first half of the game, everyone's screaming, where are the Patriots? Where are the Patriots? Because they're not out on the field. Then in the second half of the game, they're saying, oh, Atlanta ran out of gas. They don't know what they're doing. They're all lost.
Where are the Falcons? Where are the Falcons? They went back to Atlanta already.
Yeah, exactly. And, it just got to be ridiculous. But, congratulations, Patriots.
Yeah, hey, they've set, and it's nice. I like it because, now for all there are a lot of Patriots fans who are also avid Red Sox fans, and, they've always condemned the evil empire of the Yankees, and only because the Yankees won a lot.
Exactly.
And they didn't. So, now, on Sunday, they said on national TV that 75% of the people are rooting against the Pats because they are the evil empire. So, next time you want to just hate the Yankees because they win a lot, like your team, but don't hate the Yankees, because that's what people do to the Patriots. And you know something? You got to give them credit. They're a well-coached team. They went in there and they did what they had to do. They came back. They had some help, but they won the football game.
Yeah.
They put more points on the board, and they set a record. The first team in 93-0 was the record of teams coming back from a 19-plus, deficit, and They did it. So,
And this was the first Super Bowl that went into overtime.
and I was I was glad at the end of the game.
But you know,
So,
it's interesting because you're already saying about how people hate the Yankees because they're the
And they
evil
hate the
empire.
Patriots now all over the country.
Yeah, well, now they hate the Patriots. But the problem is this. It's not that people are upset that their team lost. They just can't stand the sore winners. And that's always the problem because Patriots fanatics, I don't call them fans, the Patriots fanatics really like to rub it in your face. And, you know, that's great because, you know what, for a long time, the Patriots truly did suck for many, many years. But those diehard fanatics came through that bad period. And now they're in a period where it's good. And, you know, sooner or later, the dynasty will come to an end. And another team will start to shine because that's the nature of the beast. That's what happens. Everything changes.
It's part of the landscape.
Right.
And you know, I understand. You know, they get a little carried away, but so do some.
So do Red Sox fans. So do
and
Bruins
that's
fans,
part of
you
the
know.
sports. But you know, when they talk about that, I don't really mind it. I kind of, you know, I think it's funny when these guys they're fanatical because, you know, my first thing is you should get a life outside of, you know, the sports. But the other thing is that it doesn't bother me because, you know something, I truly believe in what Muhammad Ali said once. He said, you know, if you can do what you say, it ain't bragging.
No, that's right.
So these guys, you know, they talk the talk, but they also walk the walk. They did it. They're the champs again, and you know, kudos to them. And like I said, I keep it in perspective that it wasn't all them. The Patriots fans are going to make it all about what the Patriots. Well, you know, Atlanta had a big contributing factor. That was the worst collapse I've ever seen in the history of the NFL, especially by a team with the #1 offense in the NFL. So, but hey, everybody's happy now, and but no, let's not forget. We're getting back to the real stuff now.
That's right.
Let's get angry again. We're getting back to politics.
We're going from first rate to fourth rate.
Let's get back to the politics.
Mike Dion did it again. Fourth rate, outdated waste of $100,000. Are you serious? Are you serious? Yes, we are. Because you know what? In my weekend flush, I talked a lot about this branding campaign. Okay? And the fact that I pointed out things like the fact that Michael Benavides is prominently, or business is prominently displayed in this video, this campaign. So, hey, Fall River taxpayers, I'm so happy that you feel comfortable promoting a local business with your tax dollars, because that's the first I've ever seen it done. Okay? And not only did he serve on the committee to create this, so you'll wonder why he's in it, okay, he also is now serving on the Tourism Council with someone called Monica Souza, who's paid for with federal dollars, which the mayor has now said at a Niagara neighborhood meeting that she's been pivotal in policy. Now she's pivotal in tourism, and she's pivotal in rebranding. Guess what? The money that is paying for her salary is not for that. And therefore, it is a violation of federal law. So, Mr. Mayor, if HUD decides to take that money back, I hope you have it available, because you don't even have the $30,000 left to pay off this rebranding campaign, which you didn't have funding for. Therefore, that's an illegal contract. Or don't you read the law? What, because you won the lawsuit on the privatization issue, which the reason you won it, unlike your propaganda and your campaign stump speech, is not because you were right. It's because you got the city council to fund it. Because if it did not have funding, it would have been thrown out of court and an injunction would have been issued. And that's why you bribed. Yes, I'm going to use the term bribe, Mr. Mayor. Okay? City councilors like Pam LeBeau and say, I will give you the teacher if you give me the vote. And she got the teacher at Spencer Borden, and you got the vote. Guess what? That's how it's done. That's what we call backdoor politics.
Yeah, well, the reason that number one, branding never works, and as we went over on the last show, because these communities they're blue-collar communities whose economy is based in people working. It's not an affluent community where people have tons and tons of money. All we have to do is look back at Fall River 30 or 40 years ago when Pleasant Street had 8 restaurants between Stafford Square and Bogle Hill. Now there's virtually nothing. And why? It wasn't because the city was rich. It was because people had a job. They had money. They went out to eat once in a while. They bought things. And now we have a city that's has almost a quarter of its population living below the poverty level. We have the lowest income. So this rebranding is a crock. Again, to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. We're going to throw people who have been working with handicapped children out of the system because we can't stay on welfare to do this in the school department. By the way, these services are federally mandated too. So the city of Fall River is going to say, well, I know we have to provide this service, and we've been providing this service for years. And we have people who have relationships with teachers and parents and stuff, and they have an investment in this community and in this school system. But the school department and the two say, throw them out in the street. I'm reminded of an old quote from one of my favorite books, The Untold Story of Labor. And Fall River's in there quite a bit because it's about the formation of why unions were created and the formations of unions because of all the abject poverty these people lived in and stuff. And they interviewed one of the richest people in the United States at the time. We're talking in the 1800s, but the same attitude for the poor still prevails. He said, I treat the workers in my factory like the machines. I use them until they wear out, and then I cast them in the street. Welcome to Fall River, 2017. I use them in the school department until I run out of federal money. Then I cast them out and get some hired guns to send in people and have turnovers of people and people rebidding and no continuity of service with handicapped children. Congratulations. Congratulations. That's arguably one of the most insensitive actions to even consider I have ever seen in all my years, and that's a lot of years I've been dealing with unions and employees in the city. It's disgraceful.
Well, why? I mean, let's be real. We've gotten rid of a nurse in Government Center.
Yeah.
Because the community can do it better. Although, without the nurse, I'm wondering how they're qualifying for some issues and some monies. Now we're going to get rid of the school nurses, which we had this fight back in the 80s. Then we had this fight back in the 90s. And what happened in the late 90s and part of 2000 was the nurses in Government Center was going out to the schools. And they were giving medications, doing blood sugars, giving insulins, and then coming back to Government Center. So the job at Government Center wasn't getting done. Because the school department didn't want to hire the nurses.
Yeah. Well, the school departments like to pay anybody except administrators, and we know that. And we've got to remember, they're not only like nurses, some of them are physical therapists. There are like 10 individuals.
But you know,
and you know, we're talking about, let's get right down again to the bottom line, CJ. You know, we're talking about probably the most vulnerable portion of our school population. These children have serious physical issues and they need this stuff. They need these things. That's why they're required to have these services.
Right.
But the city of Fall River has been on the dole for years because of the Fed. But now they're going, oh, if the feds don't pay for you, screw you, we'll go get some.
But you see, here's where the problem is. And I brought this up to Dr. Malone, the superintendent of schools, on Thursday, and we spoke about it briefly. I said, what is your PT1 reimbursements? That's reimbursements from the insurance companies for transportation back and forth to school that is medically necessary. This is the key. Because every IEP student in the city has transportation written into their IEP. Now, the insurance companies require you to prove it. Give me the reason for medical necessity. That means a doctor's order. That means why it's necessary and the documentation for that. If they can't get it for the insurance company, why are we providing it? That's the first issue. $9 million. Now, physical therapy in the schools. Some of these students get physical therapy at home. Therefore, if they're getting it at home, the school department doesn't need to provide it. It's trying to double dip. Because if they're getting it at home, the insurance company's already paying for it at home. If they're not getting it at home and they want to include it in the IEP so it's given at school, bill the insurance company. Again, it comes back to reimbursement. The city does not reimburse for items that they can get paid for. So let's get real. If you're providing a service, you get paid for it. Just because it's free public education doesn't mean that all the ancillary services that go with it are free.
Well,
and if there's an availability to get reimbursed for it, we should be getting the reimbursement.
Well, the only problem that we have in this school system is it's an inverted pyramid. The fact is that the people at the bottom get crapped on because it is trickle-down economics, and it's trickle-down of excrement. That's what's trickling down. They get crapped all over because the only thing they ever seem to find money for is administrators and principals and vice principals and chiefs of staff and CFOs. Now, these people, as I said, are very, very necessary. But again, just as Fall River does with its bond ratings, and then they say, oh, look, we can still bond. They only can bond because the state is underwriting the bond. We're a welfare city. They love to talk about make it here. Make it here if you can get a subsidy. That actually should be included in our new branding campaign. Make it here if you get a subsidy. If you can get the state or the feds to pay for it, let's make it here.
And no, they make it.
If we're going to pay for it, if we're going to pay for it, screw you.
Yeah.
We're going to throw you out and get a private contractor.
Yep.
You know, see, this is the whole problem here. You know, some of these people are near retirement. They've been in the system that long, and it's incredible that because, well, we can't get federal money. Well, heaven forbid we actually take some of the school budget and put it into necessary services, not hiring more administrators and giving Meg Mayo Brown's secretaries a pay that exceeds, you know, school teachers because they're entitled to specialized information and they bargain individually. You know, this is the whole scam that Fall River. Look, they've been doing this forever. The only thing that changes is the names. You know, now we have cars instead of horses. And you know, when the look, it's true. You can laugh.
Yeah, no,
you know,
you're right.
You know, when the Durfees and all the other
the Durfees, the Bordens, the Abbotts,
the Abbotts. Yeah. When all the swamp Yankees were running the mills.
Be careful, you're talking about my family there.
When they all were sitting up on the highlands,
yep,
looking down at the six family houses with people living in squalor. And if you read the book, The Untold Story of Labor, you'll see people testifying in the 1800s about making $125 a year for a family of six and having to steal wood to heat and pick clams from the Taunton River to survive, and you know, and it's but it's still the same today. The difference is the people in the city, the people that made this city, the people who worked, didn't make a lot of money, but they made some money and they contributed. They contributed to this city.
Yeah.
They made this city. They were this city, and they are this city. And the reason that this city is no longer a viable community is because those people have disappeared. If they made enough money, they got the hell out of Dodge, and if they didn't, they just faded off into the sunset and tried to get on welfare. You know, that's the problem with this city. This branding crap with all his yuppie friends it's exactly what it is. It's a crock. And now let's see if the council takes another step to urinate money in a hole. Let's see what they do about moving people into a group which will increase the unfunded liability of the pension system, which by the way, Moody cited. Kathy Ann and Mary Sahadi have incessantly whined about the unfunded liability. Retirement boards made an agreement to fund this system by 2035, but they want to throw all those schedules off now by moving people into a group that allows them early retirement. When the rest of the world is going in to try to increase the retirement age, Fall River, because the mayor's looking to make a deal. They're saying, oh, we're going to make the, and it's not that I have disdain for them or their job, but the fact is, I saw what he said. They share some of the hazards. Well, unfortunately, they don't. That's one of the reasons that well, number one, no city except Wareham, and most of the people in Wareham are firefighters, which are automatically in Group 4. They said they were going to make these people into firefighter paramedics. So this wasn't necessary in their contract. When they become firefighters, they will automatically go to Group 4. That Group 4 is for people who have high-hazard jobs and whose jobs, as I said, can you see a 60-year-old police officer chasing down an 18-year-old perp, or a 60-year-old corrections officer wrestling a 20-year-old felon?
How about a 60-year-old firefighter climbing up on a roof?
Yeah, hang on. It's not a job. Yeah. Plus, they contract heart disease and cancer at higher rates. And the proof of this pudding is, even if they do move these people into Group 4, they're not eligible for the heart bill and the lung bill. You know why, Mr. Mayor? Because they don't share the hazards we do. They don't run into burning buildings. They don't take smoke for their whole life. They're not a police officer that every time he pulls over a car, his blood pressure goes up 100 points because he could be shot and killed. Do they have some danger? Yeah. But you know something? They don't have any more danger than a social worker. A social worker walks into those same apartments.
That's right.
You know, and if the apartment is not safe, they wait for police and fire. They call for police and fire.
Yes, they do.
You know, and the fact is, so they don't share the unique hazards that created Group 4. They don't. And this is a political move because you know something? If we were being realistic and looked at this right, this is a scam because they said that they're going to have a fire-based EMS, which means that these people will have to take the test, go through the academy, and become firefighters. And once they become firefighters, they will automatically be in Group 4. This is to take care of the people who don't want to become firefighters.
That's right.
And who don't want this job, and who can retire before the transition is fully made and retire earlier and get more money. And so if you want to do that, fine, City Council. Go ahead. But I'm going to tell you what. Every single time one of you complains about the unfunded liability, every time Kathy Ann Viveris and Mary Sahadi goes before the council and complains about the unfunded liability, I will be at the next meeting reminding you that you intentionally increased the liability in the pension system.
Here's my problem with this whole thing, though. Number one, he bargained Group 4. You can't bargain it.
Yeah, you can't.
You can't bargain
the City Council has to approve it.
But the City Council did approve the contract because they came before them, and they don't read them. So what are they doing? What are they getting paid for? They didn't even read the contract. That's the first thing. Secondly, it says that they're not going to become Group 4 until 2019. Wrong. Wrong. Once the City Council adopts Chapter 467, Chapter 32C, they are Group 4 employees that day. And it doesn't matter if they have 20 years prior to that as Group 2, they're Group 4.
No, you're 100% right, CG, but the fact is the City Council, as you said, doesn't read it, doesn't have their own attorney, doesn't know anything about collective bargaining, and actually they ratified an illegal contract.
That's right.
Because the city had no right to bargain a benefit with the collective bargaining unit that they cannot give you.
That's right.
They can't give them Group 4. And as usual, just like the mayor always does something, then looks for the money later, he doesn't have any money, but he enters into a contract without having the money to pay for it. Then he goes back to the City Council, and the City Council goes, oh, yeah, okay. They're not going to say, well, why didn't you come to us first? No, again, it proves the law and the judge, it proves it. The fact is that that contract language was totally inane. It meant nothing. It is not, you can't do it. That benefit that you voted on that you were going to get in your contract is not legal. And shame on the union for not knowing that. Because the union supposedly went down to Wareham and they knew everything about how it's going to be done. Well, guess what? If the city council doesn't approve it, doesn't approve increasing the unfunded liability by putting them in Group 4, that part of the contract is null and void. And therefore, the ratification vote on that contract should not be upheld because it was ratified with the contract as presented and signed for form and what else, CJ?
Form and content.
Content. So the content was not accurate, Corporation Counsel Macy, because you gave them a benefit. That benefit did not stipulate that you will grow to Group 4 if the city council approves the move under the law. It says you will be Group 4 in 2019. Now they're going back to the city council for them to prove it under the law. So the whole thing, again, is bull, and it's taking care of people. And, you know, look.
But my thing is this.
Look,
why are they in a hurry? Why are they in a hurry to pass, to accept 467 today when they don't need to accept it until 2019?
I know. Well,
why? Because once they accept it today or tomorrow, okay, those people are Group 4, regardless of what the contract says, they're Group 4.
That's right.
And therefore, if you've got a couple of guys on there that are 50 years old or 55 and got 20 years in, guess what? I'm taking my retirement. I'm out of here.
And listen, the fact is that this is why it's crap. It's a deal, special deal, because you know something? I don't believe everybody who's working in EMS wants to be a firefighter.
No, they don't.
You know, because there are a lot of people that don't want to run into burning buildings. You know, that's just the fact of life. And there are people, just like people don't want to do EMS. So the fact is the people that aren't to be extended a benefit that should be given to somebody else and increasing the liability. Because you know something? I'm on a retirement board. You want to put everybody in a city in Group 4? Go ahead. You'll just bankrupt the system. So, but I'll probably be dead before we run out of money. So you know something? The hell with it. And shame on the firefighters union.
And you know what?
Shame on the firefighters union for not standing up and saying, you know, Group 4 was created for people with particular hazards in their job.
That's right.
Particular hazards in their job. And now the politicians get their mitts on it, and they put the DAs in because the DA got shot, so they're going to put them in, one guy. So like I said, put in the social workers. Put in visiting nurses. Put in everybody. Because you know something? Every time you walk into an apartment in a 3-decker in Fall River, you could be walking into a drug deal, you know, a meth lab that's going to blow up. So they all face some hazard. But we're talking about jobs that have an inherent hazard. And the fact is, when a police officer puts on his badge and a firefighter walks in a fire station and a corrections guard walks into a prison, as we saw just a few days ago, they have an inherent danger every single day. And that is not the same thing.
That's right. And even though the mayor says it's not retroactive, guess what? It is. I'll see you on Wednesday, Chip. Best of luck on your surgery. We'll be thinking good thoughts for you.
Thank you all, and I will see you as soon as possible after my surgery.